Okay, thank you guys for joining us for the Tuesday, April 13th regular meeting of the Community Activity Grant Committee. Present are Frank Pappalardo from the committee, Jim Lampos from the committee, Eric Olson from the committee, and myself, Mary Jo Nozel from the committee. Bonnie Reamsnyder has not joined us yet. Tim, I believe, is at another meeting, but hopefully will join us soon. And I've asked, oh, here comes Bonnie. Good.
Sorry.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
Kurt to hopefully send us his estimate for his design services, and we can talk about that in a minute. Is there any public here? I see none. So we'll skip public comment and then go on to the agenda for project updates. I don't have a lot. I was hoping Tim might have more on this. Number 35 is the hedges, the row of hedges. Tim was going to ask Ed to trim those. I know as of last Thursday, they hadn't been trimmed.
As of today, they have not been trimmed yet.
Thank you, Eric.
They did, they're staked out. I see Martin Lavera must have did some staking in front of them, but they're not trimmed as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Public Works is aware of the pending request. Number 31 is the fence. I don't have any update personally on that. And number 21 is the property that didn't sign the temporary rights access. But as you know, our town attorney sent a letter to them about a week ago. I never saw the final, so I was hoping Tim might have some update on that, but I had that final draft, which I sent around to everybody, but I never saw the actual final one. So I'm assuming it went out.
Looks strong enough.
Pardon me?
I said it looks strong enough.
Yeah, yeah. I did see Ed when I was out and about this week, but he didn't say anything to me in particular about that, so I didn't bring it up. We'll see what happens. Connecticut Water is supposed to be on Upper Hartford Avenue by email today to be moving the water mains that were recently put in. One in particular is right in the way of our sidewalk. Hopefully they will be getting those out of the way. The email indicated they would be out there today.
They finished it.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jim. Communication with the butters, to my knowledge, we haven't heard anything from town hall anyway, from people. As you know, everyone got a more formal letter after our last meeting that went out, as well as a flyer at their door or a business door. I didn't get any feedback from that. Construction update. We had our construction meeting this morning. It was pretty straightforward. BSC ran the meeting, both Kurt and Carly Corbo, who's working with him, who'll be kind of managing the site work for BSC, were present. And just in summary, the contractor is beginning to put his equipment out there and do some lay down work. They're going to prioritize the part of the parking lot across the police station that is the southwest side, the southwest corner, so closer to Shore Road and the plumbing business. And they will be doing over the next 2 weeks some excavation, some removal of curbing, and depending on the weather, we'll be down there to do more work. But Martin Laverio, our contractor, Dan, indicated he didn't want to open up too much given the pending rain that's supposed to hit. So they're going to be careful watching that. They're going to begin at the south end of Hartford Avenue and work north. And they're going to be doing some testing. They're going to be following the protocol the BSC group requires them to do under the DOT manual. Let's see. I think that's it. Other than that, the encroachment permit is still pending for Shore Road. Dan did say that he still hasn't had his encroachment permit on another project out of District 4. So we're in District 2, but on another project in District 4, he hasn't received the encroachment permit on that yet. So BSC has volunteered to help them if another week goes by and they haven't gotten any movement. Else on that. Do you have any comments on the meeting, Frank? Because you attended.
It was pretty straightforward. It was the second meeting we had because the first one was the inaugural 2 weeks ago. And they'll happen every 2 weeks on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the morning. So.
Right. Yeah. And they're trying to keep it to a half hour. I did speak with DOT last week just to confirm that we could move forward with construction, even though we haven't had the PAL executed yet, and that's the project authorization letter. And I got a written statement back from Craig Babowitz saying, yes, we could move ahead. He had drafted it. And since we got a signed contract, he said it's okay to move ahead. He is on vacation this week, but he hopes that he'll give us the PAL either this week, at the end of this week or next week, for Tim to sign. And at that point, then within 30 days, we will receive our our grant from the state. So that's an important little piece of paper. And then one thing I forgot to ask at the construction meeting, totally forgot. When I went to Pizza Plus with the, not Pizza Plus, Teddy's, with the flyer, Teddy would like to have 2 barriers moved in front of his business to protect the, like the Jersey barriers to protect the public who are eating at the table from the construction site. Public Works, I went there first. They didn't feel that was a good, appropriate with this being a private business. So I wanted to ask our contractor if they could bring it in. There might be some charge associated with that, and I forgot to ask him. So I will have to email them.
Mary Jo, just to you said you asked our town department, and they said that was not it. They didn't feel it would be necessary because it's a private business?
He didn't think that would be a good practice for us to be supporting a private business.
Well, on the contrary, I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to do it. I mean, we're doing a project, the town is doing a project, and we want to protect his people from our project. I can't imagine any other situation that's more appropriate for the town.
We're going in. We're protecting ourselves and him from us. I would ask Tim's opinion on this, and Mary Jo, maybe you, Chris, and Tim can talk about this. I mean, I understand, Public Works doesn't want to have their tail hanging out there, and I get that. But maybe the selectmen can say something, make a ruling on this, because we're going in. So, and I think Teddy's request is not unreasonable. And it seems like something that, I may be wrong, but that Public Works could do like as a no-brainer. I'm sure they have Jersey barriers. I'm sure they could bring them down and plop them down without, with insignificant cost.
Is this just Teddy wants just something temporary while the construction is going on, Mary Jo?
That's correct.
Yeah, I agree with Frank and Jim. The town needs to protect, people while the project is going on. We're not erecting anything to benefit Teddy. It's just protection.
Right. I would agree, but I don't know that Public Works has Jersey barriers that are appropriate to put there because sometimes what they have are of different quality. When we wanted Jersey barriers down by Soundview, if you recall, it was Macnic that came in with Jersey barriers that met the need. So I would discuss it with Tim, find out if they have Jersey barriers to put there. And if not, I would ask the company to, tell us how much it would cost. But I would agree, that's not giving services to a private business. It is protecting the town. Absolutely.
Okay. Hopefully Tim will join us so we can have that discussion. Thank you, everybody. All right. I think that's pretty much all I have on construction. Anybody else before we move on? Okay, I already told you about the PAL. That's really all I have. Now we're kind of getting into the fun part of our meeting, the grant utilization for further investment in the gateway. As you know, the construction bid came in at 261,000 and we're getting 400,000. So I sent you guys sort of a worksheet that came from the DOT that was part of our budget that we had to present to the DOT for approval. And I just put my hand notes on the side. And if you assume that we're going to use all the incidentals and contingencies, which we might be able to use some of that money for other parts of the project, we have at least 86,800 to use. We had asked Tim to go to the Board of Finance to ask for approval for the appropriation for the ineligible expenses. But at this time, the Board of Finance and Tim concurs that we do not need an appropriation. They are interested in hearing what we plan to do with the additional funds and going from there. My understanding, and Tim has said this, is that printing, the advertising, and the legal, including the easement work, was covered under the selectmen's budget. So I didn't even include those. So at this point, I believe we would need to be concerned with the 15,000 for design during construction work, which that agreement was signed, and then possibly for some contingency.
So my question is, so then the Board of Finance and Tim, they're going to pay the 15,000 or whatever Kurt ends up billing us. They just don't want to make an appropriation right now without knowing the exact amount. Is that what?
Well, yeah, Tim did sign the agreement for BSC, so this money would come out of surplus for time and materials of BSC's work.
The way I understand it is that the additional work that we're going to ask Kurt to do in design, Board of Finance wanted to actually have a hard copy proposal to work off of. So for instance, if we're going to ask Kurt to design new curbs, some extra signage, the bus area, Kurt puts together a proposal, say this is what it's going to cost, XYZ, then Tim will take that to the Board of Finance and get funding for that. That's why I understood. They actually want to have something in hand so they know what they're proving.
I think that's true, but for this $15,000 that has already been signed off on, we've had that proposal since last fall, and that 15,000 did not get approved specifically by Board of Finance. Tim was going to go for that and another 5. So we have not yet gotten a proposal from BSC to do design work for these additional work that we're considering under the for the transportation center, but verbally, BSC had told me he thought it might be another $5,000.
For the transportation center.
Yes.
Okay. So do we, as a committee, approve that, or do and send that up the line to the selectmen, or do we ask for that in writing? And what's our next step here? Do we agree that $5,000 is a reasonable number for Kurt to design the transportation center and to have it as part of this package? That's the first question I would have.
Well, first, we haven't seen anything, but that's verbally what he said. Second, since some of this work was already done initially, remember when we were initially talking about the transportation center, I believe some of that work might already be available for Kurt to work through. So yeah, I think 5,000 is reasonable, personally.
I would agree. I think 5,000 is reasonable, but it also, if we were to use the remainder of the grant money for grant eligible items, then we would go over budget with the 15,000 and this additional 5,000.
Yes.
And at that point, we would have to go to the Board of Finance and get more money. The reason that they're not approving anything is because the budget, that total amount that we've got, 400,000, covers it, even though that 15,000 is going to come out of surplus, because it can't come out of the grant money. The grant money, you know, we have to return what we don't use for eligible funds. So
Right.
it's a little bit, you know, pulling the wool over the taxpayers' eyes, because they don't realize either way it's coming out of taxpayer dollar.
Well, so what you're saying, Bonnie, is they should have gone, rather than a $400,000 appropriation, they should have gone for a $415,000 appropriation on the front end.
Yes.
Which would have been.
But we didn't know. We didn't know that.
We didn't know. We didn't know. So
but we've known this since October.
They went with what they had knowledge of. So I think now our next step is just to, say, okay, well, we want to add this extra stuff in there. Selectmen, here's a $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 bill. How are you going to pay for it? And just
right.
I think we have to let the selectmen know that we're going to spend that $5,000, even though according to Tim's and the Board of Finance's view, you don't have to appropriate any more money, because the $5,000 still is going to be under the total budget that we have. It's just that I think we need to make it clear that we understand that should we use all of the grant money, this project will go over budget, and we would either have to go to the Board of Finance, or we would have to go to a town meeting to get funds approved to utilize the full 400,000 for eligible costs.
I'm uncomfortable with using the phrase over budget, because
that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. It will. If we go for the transportation center and or curbing, and we use the full amount that is left, then we will have gone over the budget, because that 15,000. So at what point do we say to the Board of Finance, if we do the curbing, let's say the curbing utilizes all the funds, and we say to them, DOT has approved it, the grant will pay for it, but if we do it, you have to appropriate additional money before we can do it. That's putting us in a position where we shouldn't have been in, because we had a budget, eligible funding, for eligible things of $400,000. And essentially it's making it look like the 15,000 is coming out of the 400,000 grant money, even though it can't.
Well, I understand. I mean, it's shuffling, funds around, and I understand what you're saying, Bonnie. I'm not sure that we have to go into that much detail with our particular request to the selectmen. Only in that we say that, we have the opportunity to use approximately or up to $80,000 or $90,000 unused grant money, and it's going to cost us $5,000 for engineering fees, which aren't covered, and then let the selectmen figure out how they're going to make their magic with the Board of Finance.
And that that may be fine, but I think it's worth having the conversation so we are clear that we understand that $15,000 not approved by the Board of Finance could make it look like we're going over budget. It's exactly what we're trying not to do. We're trying to be transparent.
Right, and I agree with that. I think that's pretty much are all saying that. We all understand that, and I think these meetings are pretty open.
Well, as long as people looking in from the outside understand that too, because that's usually where the darts start going. And look, they went over budget again. They spent too much money. And that's why I just want the clarification in this conversation. But I do think we should try to get everything we can done. I think we should get the curbing done if we can, if it's reasonable and everybody agrees it's something that we want there. And I think that we should try to get that transportation hub done. I don't know if there's enough money left to do it, but we should at least move forward and get votes on it.
I agree.
Anyone
Right,
else?
so we can't, I mean, Kurt's design fee of $5,000, we're not going to know what all the extra is going to cost until he designs it. So we kind of
Right.
have to pay that to see how far we can go.
Exactly.
And the Board of Finances, they're going to have to realize that we're not going to know how much of the 80, if we go by the 86,000 that's left on the grant eligible expenses, we don't know how much we're going to be able to spend until it's, the extra work is designed. So,
Right, and it may actually be more than that if they don't use the contingency fee and the incidental fee. I mean, there could be another 20 or 30,000 there, depending on what obstacles they run into.
right, exactly. There's another 50,000 that may not get spent on the two streets right now. So I think it's worthwhile to have it designed. And then again, like we talked about having the Shore Road designed from the beginning, if we don't get it all done, we apply for another grant and now the design work is done, so that's what we talked about.
Well, I think that fellow from the construction company and Kurt figured that, I mean, that transportation hub is not going to be, I mean, it's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be crazy expensive. So we should be able to get that done with what funds we have, or at least scale it to the point where we can afford to do what we have money for.
Right.
Okay, so
do we
want
need
a motion, Mary Jo?
Yeah, do you need a motion, Mary Jo, or?
tell me what motion you're thinking about.
I would make a motion that the committee authorizes BSC to do the consulting and engineering for the transportation hub and miscellaneous items pending selectmen approval.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Eric. Any discussion?
So
I think I should
just
put a dollar. I think I should put a dollar amount in there, up to $5,000 engineering fees, up to $5,000.
Did you have a little bit more?
Make it 6,000, 6,500. What do you
Well,
think?
because we didn't get anything written from him. So I would go, a little bit higher.
Make it
6,000.
6,500, not to exceed 6,500.
my concern is that, I mean, just what Bonnie was bringing up, we've just hit a solid brick wall with the first selectman and the Board of Finance. And, you know, they're very intelligent people. They know exactly what's going on here. So I think we're getting some pretty serious pushback, and we can look like we're just out there spending taxpayers' money. It's sort of what we're being set up for here, because that $400,000, the perception is that this is a town grant, that we have been appropriated this money. We haven't. That money goes away. So it's really, you know, we're just stewards of that money. We're not, you know, it hasn't been appropriated by the town. So if that's sort of the lay of the land that we're facing. I would say that the resolution should say pending approval of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to make sure that everyone's on board. I don't want to go out there, you know, and be kicked in the rear by the Board of Finance and say, oh, look at these people, you know, they've blown it, you know, they blew the budget.
Well,
That's what we're being, seems to me, at least.
Yeah, I certainly understand your concern, you know, Jim. I don't think there's a problem with adding and the Board of Finance in, but the selectmen just can't spend money without going to the Board of Finance anyhow. So, I mean, that's kind of de facto, it's kind of de facto approval. But
I just want to make sure that, you know, we have a full, you know, sort of a full picture of what's going on. And we should have a plan B as well, because we have to move fairly quickly. And if I'm not sure exactly what the Board of Finance is trying to say, saying we've already appropriated $400,000 of monies there. When they know that it's not our money, it's going away. You know, if we don't spend the 400, that, you know, it's not like we can just spend that on the $15,000 design fees. We can't. We're on the hook for it regardless. So
Jim,
yeah.
let me try to elaborate for you.
Sure, thanks.
In municipal finance, you have the revenue side of the budget and the expense side of the budget. 100,000, it enables the town to spend the grant money if the full 400,000 is in play. So if on the revenue side, there'd be an equal 400,000, which is the grant that the state of Connecticut is supposed to give us. So if the project costs 500,000 and we had to use all the money to do the job, and we'd have to cut something to make it work for 400,000, then they'd be equal. In this case, we have something, you know, between the contractor and the consultant fee and so forth. We are not spending the 400,000 at this point to do the job. So there'd be, you know, we have contingency in there for a bunch and so forth. So if we have appropriated 400,000 on the town side, and we only use the grant, say 350,000, then we return 50,000 to the state, but we can use the other 50,000 for other stuff that is not grant eligible. So there's two sides of the budget.
Okay, so even if on the revenue side we have, it only comes through as 350, so there's a 50 deficit, the town will still cover that additional $50,000 out of their appropriation.
It's in the budget to spend 400, so that's been factored into the mill rate and everything else.
So regardless of the revenue.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to go back to look for more money. It's on the spending side, okay. So that's the basic thing. It's an equal sign between. If we underspend on the grant, money goes back. In a perfect world, we probably will, unless we, you know, come up with more town money, go for an appropriation. It's likely not to use the grant to the 100%, $400,000.
No, I'd like to use it to the last penny, Tim. Let's get as much money out of the state as we can.
Well, sure.
And
So
According to that, then we should be able to make a motion to approve spending up to $6,000 on Kurt for design without going to the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen. And making it,
I would say, following what Jim said, I think it would be very smart for the committee to come up with the list of things that the committee would like to do that were beyond the initial scope. You know, the initial scope didn't contemplate the transportation thing. It may be other things, the sign and this and that. So if we're going beyond the scope, I think while there's going to be grant, it should be fine. But I think now that you're going beyond the scope of the job, I think it would be prudent to go to, ultimately the Board of Finance to say, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Because as you said, Jim, we want to use the grant money, but we also don't want to have to spend extra town money. So if we use the grant money to 100% for incorporating a lot of new stuff, then the 15,000 that we have for the non-eligible BSC tasks and other things of that nature would have to be appropriated. And we talked about $20,000. If we underspend the grant, okay, it goes back, but we have room to pay for that. And if we don't really have a shopping list of stuff that would use the full grant, then, we don't
and
have.
we're good, but it's still town money. It's still taxpayer money.
No.
Yes, it is.
How?
It's not coming from the grant money, so it's got to come out of town money.
But it's
may
already
come out of
approved.
that line item.
It would be the 400,000 on the expense side plus 20,000. So you're taking $20,000 more out of the taxpayers.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
You are.
How do you figure that, Tim? If you've got $400,000 and 15,000 of what you're spending out of 400,000 is not eligible from grant money, you've got to take it from taxpayer money. You cannot take it out of grant money. You got to return that. So your revenue goes down, even though you stay within that budget, your revenue is down. I mean, that's basic addition and subtraction. So I think if we have a budget of $400,000, then it would be my understanding that we can say, let's spend another $6,000, up to $6,000 to get costs, design and costs for the items that we could possibly add, whether they were in the initial scope or not. We should be able to add them because it is
I
grant.
think it would be wise for the committee to think of all the things that would like to be done and see where that number comes out.
Which
Because
I think we
wind
have.
up at the end of the day with $100,000 beyond what the scope of the project is, very possibly all of the above could be done, no problem. But I think if you go to the Board of Finance and said, well, we're going to spend $6,000 on the engineer, and then we're going to come back a month later, well, we're going to spend another that's $4,000 on a sign, and then we're going to do some curbing. That's going to be $80,000. And I think you ought to have a list.
But Tim, we don't know what the costs are going to be until this is the first step. So we have to get the engineers renderings and design work done before we know how much the curb is going to cost, and before we know how much the sign is going to cost, the transportation center. So this is like the first step. We have to get this piece of the puzzle done before we could get those other done. So what we say
is there a list of stuff that the committee wants to do?
We can certainly do that now as what we want to include in the engineering edition. One would be the transportation center.
Once you get the $6,000, that shouldn't just be for the hub. If you've got some other things you're thinking about, you should say, okay, now that we know we have, say, 80 to 100,000 that we don't need for the original project, here's a few things we'd like to think about, and then start costing them out, and then put it all together and see where it comes out. But I
We
think,
can't cost them out until we spend the first $6,000, Tim. We have to.
well, okay, 6,000. Now, is that going to be grant eligible, do you think?
No, it's not going to be grant eligible. That's engineering, which is not grant eligible. So
All
that
right.
is not grant eligible. That's $6,000 going to, or 5, or whatever it happens to be, going to BSC is not grant eligible. We cannot get a price for the transportation hub or anything else until we spend that first 6,000.
Is that engineering going to cover the laundry list of things that?
Well, let's talk about the laundry list now. I mean,
Okay.
transportation hub, curbing.
All right, wait a minute, hold on, time out. Do you want to, Frank, do you want to take your motion off the table and we'll come back to
Let
it?
me table my motion until we can hash out this.
Thank
We're-
you.
I guess we're in
The question-
discussion period.
I think, Mary Jo, you asked what would a motion sound like? I don't know that he actually made a motion. I think he was just describing.
Well, that's what I asked, but then it was seconded. So it now is off the table and we have a new baby at our table. Yay.
Sorry.
Aw. Thank
Somebody
you.
was,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so on our agenda, what we have is transportation center curbing, placing a stop sign with the decorative post. And then what I didn't add, but I sent you all the estimate, was the bike repair stations. So those were things we talked about last meeting or the previous meetings. So you want to start with those?
Well, let me just add one more thing, if I may. I spoke with Joe Comerford at the Transit District, and I asked him about the transportation center. And he said you have to have, he would recommend that the shelter, the bus shelter, be accessible from the sidewalk, so that it might mean that the bus shelter would be on the south side of the loop, so that have a connector from the sidewalk to the bus shelter, have a little loop around to the front of the bus shelter, and then they can wait in the bus shelter. I asked him about whether we need parking, and he said, no. You could put it in, I suppose, but it's not customary for the ETD. It's not like a city bus where you have like the parking lots on Route 9 or something. So depending on the scope of this transportation center, that should be fleshed out as to what really is needed and what do we need.
Mhm.
I'd like to just go back.
He said the feds are going to supply the actual structure itself.
Great. Going back to signs, we have a decorative stop sign at Bocce and Hartford, I believe, already baked into this proposal. Am I correct?
That Bocce in Hartford is on the original plan. Yeah,
That matches the signpost from on the southern part of the street.
that's
So
correct.
my recommendation was that we put a decorative stop sign at the top of Hartford Avenue, obviously, and then a street sign on the western side of Hartford Avenue, which say Hartford Avenue. So rather than having the street sign and the stop sign on one post, put a decorative stop sign post on the east side of Hartford Avenue, and then a decorative street sign on the west side. So
Say that, okay, say that again. You're up at Shore and Hartford Avenue.
Shore and Hartford Avenue, decorative stop sign
Yep.
on the east side, and decorative street sign on the west side.
Easy motor side.
Easy motor side, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't need to have that designed. That's not a design expense. That's just a change order to the contractor as far as what sign he puts in. So,
Right.
We're talking about Kurt's design services. That and the curbing that we're going to talk about does not have to be designed. It's just a change order.
Yeah.
So, Frank, that's fine. We can get the pricing from Martin Laverio for the adding of the change of that. That's not a design, something that we have to have Kurt design.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Eric.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, let's break this out into two parts. Part one would be the stuff that we can just go to the contractor and get a price on tomorrow. That won't involve Kurt, and that would be the wish list. I mean, what Frank brought up was great: the concrete curbs, et cetera, et cetera. Whether we do it up both Shore and Hartford or just Hartford. The sign, and I have a few ideas for what we could do at the top of the road. We could kick around. These are things we don't have to have any design costs and would be eligible under the grant. So we wouldn't be hitting the wall, we wouldn't have to go for more money. Let's tally all that up and see if we have that wish list, how that would compare to a potential transportation center. Are we starting to get up there at that point? I doubt we're going to max it out.
I'd asked Kurt, he said in our construction meeting this morning that they got an estimate from Martin Laverio on the curbing.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it's expensive, but I don't have that in writing to give you. I'm sorry, but he said it's a lot of money. So.
I think that you're right, Jim. We have kind of two pieces of the puzzle here. We have the stuff we can go directly to the contractor for as an add-on cost, but we still don't have the cost for the transportation hub. And the bottom line is we need Kurt to develop the plan and design on that before we can get a cost for that. So, I mean, we can't go into any kind of additional appropriations for this project until we have the cost for all of the pieces of the puzzle, then decide what we're going to do.
Well, I think we really we'll know what the decorative signs are because the decorative poles, because we're already putting one in, you would think it would be that times basically 3. So that should be something we can get right away. The concrete should be available, so that we should get right away. And yeah, I agree that.
Won't that be a change order also if that were to be done?
Yes.
Yes.
But except I do think that will require some design work because especially if it's on Shore Road, we need to get that approved by the DOT. So we will have some design costs associated with that.
For what? For a stop sign?
No, for the curbing.
Oh, if we go for curbing on Shore Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Kurt has got to send us what you said he got it, but he has to send it to us. That would be for curbing on Hartford Avenue that we asked the contractor to come up with, correct?
I think that's what we asked him for. I actually thought we asked him for both Shore and Hartford. So I need to see what he got.
Okay. All right.
But
So how do we phrase this motion to spend with Kurt? How do you want this? How do you think it's appropriately phrased, Tim? I'm not sure.
I think your original thought was fine. It might say that we understand it's not reimbursable by the grant, but that I think you encapsulated it fine.
All right, so I'll go back to make a motion.
Well, I might recommend not to exceed, because if the signs and the concrete are change orders, then really the only design work's a transportation center. If we're spending $15,000 to do all the construction supervision, you'd think $6,000 would go a long way for this bus stop.
there will be some engineering for the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go back to
what you said was that the committee authorizes BSC Group not to exceed $6,500 to design and engineer transportation bus center miscellaneous items. That's about what you said.
miscellaneous items as needed, such as curbing, sign positioning, which are not currently encompassed in their project work. I think that kind of covers that.
just add with the approval of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of
With,
Finance.
with the approval of Board of Selectmen
And
and the Board of Finance as appropriate. You know, they made Board of Selectmen say it's not appropriate, but that's fine. It's on the record.
Eric, want to second that one?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? It's unanimous. Great. So I just want to add that this is up to 6,500 for design work. Not eligible as the existing 15,000 we're currently working off of is not eligible also.
For the grant
So-
fund.
What do we do now? Do we get a hold of Kurt and start that ball rolling, or?
Yep. Yep, I will call him tonight. Hopefully he'll answer, but I'll email him too.
You probably want to cosmetically wait until as a Board of Selectmen. We're meeting Monday, so
Since we put it in the motion, I think you should.
Or we could give Kurt a heads up.
yeah.
Well, he's already told us he's working on it, so it won't be a total surprise. But okay, so I'm still a little bit in the mud here. Sorry, guys, but so if the Board of Selectmen approves the 6,500, Tim, at that point, are you okay? Do we have to go to Board of Finance? And if we're going to Board of Finance,
I guess I could advise them because they won't be meeting really. They have the hearing coming up, but unless they were to call a special meeting, but
okay.
I could talk to Kelsey and see what he thinks.
Okay, so, but because you guys are still operating, that it's all under the 400, we can move forward then.
Yeah,
Because
because we have 86,000 now. We're under budget right now, so.
Yeah, yep.
Plus the contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's find out where we're coming up, where our numbers are coming up with before we start to speculate too far ahead, you know.
Okay,
Well, it seems like the gorilla in the room's the curbing. So, you know, if that's a crazy number, why that'll free up a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So as far as, assuming the Board of Selectmen agree with this request for our design and engineer to get going on this, do we want to talk about a little bit more specifically under the transportation center? The discussion we had on April 1st with our engineer consisted of landscaping. We now need some sidewalk access to the bus shelter from the sidewalk. Kurt had told us at our last meeting he was going to confirm the parking issue. We were talking about what else for him to.
We talked about landscaping, maybe an asphalt road across maybe appropriate, especially in the wintertime, so that they have something to plow.
Frank, I asked Joe about that, and
Yeah.
he thought that curbing probably 100 feet through the shelter area would be at a minimum. Just because they have these buses, the kneeling buses and stuff, and they'd prefer not to have a gravel road type thing at the bus when people are getting in and stuff.
So asphalt paving, definitely.
I mean, you wouldn't have to do the whole road unless money were no object kind of thing.
Well, let's see what, I mean, if they're gonna pave 3/4 of it, you know, the remaining quarter may be insignificant.
It wouldn't be
You have to-
3/4. It's a half-acre field, so.
Yeah. It's 250 feet, I think, from one end to the other end.
Is it?
So, yeah, we have to check that out. We also included some benches and bike racks. Certain amenities that you would normally have in a transportation center as part of the landscape, as part of the part of
Right.
the utilization.
Right. And then you
And we-
guys saw the cost for
We
the
also,
bike station.
yeah, your bike fix-it thing. Yeah, we also had said connecting. We had already asked them about a sidewalk from the new sidewalk on 156 back to the bus shelter. So we already taken that into consideration, Tim,
We did.
that they want. So
Yep. Yep. And do you, Tim, who, you said the feds would provide the shelter? How does that work?
It'll take a, it won't happen immediately, but they would deliver it to Public Works, probably something like that. It's a glass enclosure looking thing.
Yeah, they had promised us about 4 years ago that we were gonna get two of them, one for Halls Road and one down right near where we're talking about. And something happened that the funds weren't there. So that they will provide that.
And I imagine we'd have to install it. So,
Well, that should be part of that should be part of our RFP for the contractor once, Kurt puts that into motion.
Right.
Maybe, maybe not. It depends on when the shelter comes in. No,
Put it in as an ad alternate.
yeah.
Joe may have a guy that does this, and he might be very able to have a learning curve on it. I could ask him.
Okay. Yeah, if you're going to talk to him, Tim, just ask what
What the
what-
installation,
what's- yeah, what the installation is and what has to be put in writing to formally request it.
Yeah, it'd be a pad under it, I'm sure, a concrete pad.
Well, Kurt should interface with him to get the design specifications for the shelter so he can spec out the pad properly. So I think that it'd be important for Tim if you can get that contact information over to Kurt so he can, he make the phone call.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay. All right. Okay. And, I think when we talk with Kurt, officially after Monday, would be good to get him to get us this information as soon as possible, because we know we have to go back to DOT for approval or anything done at Shore Road.
do we need to get approval from DOT if it's on town property?
No.
Just
Oh, you
because-
mean the bus station if it's on town property? I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but I guess if we're using the grant, we need to.
They have
I
to,
don't,
they
I
have to
don't think
approve the use of the funds, Eric. I think they have to approve the use of the funds.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I did think I told you at our last meeting, I had a preliminary discussion with Craig, and he said everything we've been talking about, he could approve. As long as it's within the gateway area and, transportation connectivity is the theme at which these are. But he did say we have to go to DOT. He said that it could go to DOT District 2 before it comes to him. So
Is the Soundview sign a separate request as well? I don't see it enumerated here. The Welcome to Soundview District or whatever that sign.
we haven't discussed it.
Well, we talked about one that would be part of the transportation center. So, but there could be, and we have talked about this in the past, there could be
Yep.
one at the top of Hartford Avenue, or there could be one on Shore Road as you're traveling eastbound. So basically across the street from where Teddy's is, there could be a Welcome to Soundview sign going that way. And of course, there's one at the transportation center going westbound. So it could be, one additional sign as part of the transportation, one is included in the transportation and then an additional sign on the other side.
Do you have a location for the other side?
Jim, that would be, I think your backyard, Jim, wouldn't
Sounds good.
it?
The force main, so hey, let's go take the sign too.
You can hang political signs on it.
Well, there's two options, Tim. We have part of the easement on the Mini Mart property, which included space for a sign. That was included as part of the easement, and then so there's that location if we wanted to put one at the top of Hartford Avenue. In addition to the one at the transportation center, Soundview Transportation Hub, whatever we want to call it.
Okay, so you want me to include those in our list to Kurt for some ideas? I remember at one point he showed us some possible signage.
He's already got some of these down, so.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Any more discussion on our desire to spend $86,800 in our construction grant? Okay, we talked about design engineering. Let me bump back up. Tim, we had a couple of things we didn't have any feedback on before you joined us. Have you given Public Works the okay to trim the hedges at number 35?
I spoke to Ed, and I will just remind him. So, he says you're all good on with the owner and stuff. And I said, we've sent letters and everything else. We're done. So I can get him to get down there and give him a haircut.
Okay. That'd be good. Because they're starting the construction at that end of things. So he probably needs to get down there this week.
Okay.
And I think it was Eric noted they've already done some staking by there. The contractor has, so it should be pretty straightforward for Public Works to do a basic trim.
It looks as if they did back of sidewalk for the staking, where the back of the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
Probably gonna be.
Okay.
That's what it looked like as I drove by.
Okay. So Ed's going to need to know where the property marker is. And it used to have that piece of metal there.
Did they put some surveyor sticks there so he can eyeball it?
I think they're going to have to for him to feel comfortable doing this.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah,
Eric?
it looked like it looked as if they staked out from Bocce Lane up to, maybe midway up. They didn't go the whole length, and there's like two stakes on each property, and it looks to me like it's the back of sidewalk, not the full 10-foot town right away.
Oh,
so
it's definitely back of sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Got it.
Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that.
well, the front strip is 2.5 feet and sidewalk's 5, so that's 7.5. And is the thing 10?
Right.
Well, it varies up and down the street, Tim.
Huh?
The right of way varies, anywhere from 4 feet on up to over 15 feet. But isn't there an iron pin in the middle of those hedges already?
There was, but it appears that somebody has maybe knocked it down a little bit. I had a hard time seeing it a couple weeks ago. So it's like maybe someone took a sledgehammer to it. It's still there. You can see the little red flag, but it's still there, but it's not poking out where it was when we took our walk.
Well, it'd be helpful to have a better
I agree.
stakes on either side of the hedge so we don't have to be, because I thought when you started at the top of the street, it's a pretty straight line going down. I thought it was about a 10-foot wide right of way or property, and the sidewalk would consume about 7.5 feet of it.
I think if Ed used 10 feet as a guidepost, I think he'd be safe.
Well, if the staking is at 7.5 feet, the boys could just do 2.5 more feet and then get out the flail mower.
Well, if Ed needs some guidance on that, let me know. I'll ask Kurt to send that photo that had it more apparent. If that
Well, it's 6 inches. It's 6 inches in from the Borderlands fence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Start looking there.
And you can see the little red flag is still there. You can see it.
It'd be 6 inches back from the Portlands, wouldn't it?
Right. 6 inches in from Borderlands fence, if that hasn't been removed yet.
Yep. Okay. Speaking of Borderlands, number 31, what do you have for us on that, Tim?
They were going to remove the fence, so I'll call them again and say that there's paw on the ground ready to go. So, their fence should be back behind the sidewalk area. I guess if it's been staked out, we would see that. But I could say it would be helpful to get it out if you're going to move it anyway, because we don't want to have it, one more thing to get work around.
Yeah. Or they need to sign one of those versions of the agreements that.
No, well, we don't want that. I mean, if they want to pull it out, that's best for all.
Yeah, but we're getting close to D-Day here, so.
Well, I think we understood with the agreement that they work around it, and if they're going to move it, why, we'd encourage them to get it out of there. But it's behind where they would work. They'd have to be a little careful that the machine isn't overstep the sidewalk itself. I'll talk to them, see if we can get them to make that happen. When do you think they'll really start in earnest? Next week, probably, huh?
Oh, it's tomorrow.
This week. They're starting this week.
Yeah.
Weather permitting. Keep us informed, please. And then have you heard anything on the letter that our town attorney sent to the butchers on 29? Have you guys gotten any feedback at town hall from that?
There's stuff, I think, in your box of returns, but we sent so many, I guess it could be run 56 people as well.
Okay. Okay, but I think we sent the special letter to number 29 that went from Mike Carey. I never received a final version of that, so I was just wondering if you heard of.
No, I think we've given them enough warning. I don't know. I haven't heard a peep, so.
Okay. All right. That's all I have on that. Anybody else?
I hate to interrupt, but I have to head out for an appointment, so I'm going to sign off now, Mary Jo.
Thank you, Eric. You know what? Before I let you go, you were at the scope review, right?
That was down at the Soundview Community Center thing.
No, you called in. That was like on March 22nd. I think you called in.
Oh, yes.
So it was you, myself, and Frank were the only ones there, and Tim. Can we just move to approving those minutes while you're here?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the scope review.
Thank you,
I'll
Eric.
second that.
Thank you, Frank. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Same.
All right, thank you very much, Eric. Talk to you soon. Any other business? Okay. So just to reiterate, we're going to bring up this motion that the committee approved today with the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, Mary Jo, just shoot me your final version of that so I can have it, make the agenda.
Sure.
Thanks.
I'll probably have it in the minutes for tomorrow. The next steps will be to obviously get a hold of Kurt and get our estimates. And if there isn't anything else, Tim, one thing that came up that we wanted to discuss with you. When I was going out door to door with the flyer of the update of the project, Teddy would like a couple of Jersey barriers to protect his patron tables from the construction work. And when I asked Ed about this, he didn't feel that, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he didn't feel that that would be a good use of public works. It'd be supporting a private business, but the committee seems to think that it really is supporting the project and protecting people. We were thinking maybe you would talk to Ed about whether he could supply, if he has them, the 2 Jersey barriers to separate his restaurant property from the construction property, just as a temporary during construction.
Okay. I'll get the dimension and maybe, those things are probably a couple of feet wide at the bottom. I wonder if that's going to encroach on him, plus the sidewalk and everything.
Well, he's
I'm
the one
gonna talk to him.
he's the one who asked for it.
I hope he knows how big they are. If we can get them.
He does, yeah.
All right, I'll talk with Ed and get the size of the thing and go down and talk with Teddy.
Okay, because if we're unable to make that happen, then we'll have to ask the contractor and there'll probably be a charge for that.
So the contractor wants it?
No, Teddy wants.
Teddy asked for Jersey barriers to protect his outdoor seating area from construction.
They'd be parallel to Route 156 then, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. He wanted 2.
Yeah.
But we could ask the contractor to put them there, and they'd probably charge us for it, and then take it away when the project is done.
Right. That was what I meant to ask him today.
Yeah. If they didn't spec it out, it's probably not a safety thing from their standpoint, but let me check it out.
Okay, thank you. All right. That's the only other business I had. Next, I have approval of minutes of the March 22nd meeting. Motion?
Which one was that? That's the full.
That was the last one we had. Let me just pull it out.
My head's exploding with meetings these days.
I hear you. This is where we reviewed the bid opening. Kurt kind of reviewed the key dates. We talked a little bit about what we'd want to do since we had some extra funding. And we talked.
I'll make a motion. We accept that.
Thank you, Frank. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? It's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Can write down our next meeting. So let me just quickly look for that. It would be May 11th at 4 o'clock. And then we have a bi-weekly construction meeting. The minutes, I think I sent those to you. Kurt already sent out the minutes from those today. So hopefully you got those. If you guys can't make those meetings, that's fine. But if there's anything you want me to share on behalf of the committee, just shoot me an email. And I will be able to ask Dan or Kurt about that. I was really impressed at how BSC managed this meeting today. Weren't you, Frank?
Very efficient.
Yeah, it was good. They're really on it, so. Right, if there's nothing else, then we can adjourn. Someone wants to make.
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn. Second.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Bonnie. All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
No discussion.
Adios.
See
Good night,
y'all
all.
later. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Bye.
Bye.